and they basically are like, hey, look at gays, buy things from us. And then if you actually look at what the company does, they don't do anything for queer rights, gay rights, LGBTQIA communities. I think so. Obviously, it's Pride Month. Happy Pride to everyone.
Woo, woo.
We have a couple. Well, and that includes everyone who's out, everyone who's not out, everyone who's still figuring it out, and anyone in between.
And if you're
Happy Pride to you.
Yeah. You
So
covered all the bases.
I work in marketing outside of doing this podcast, social media marketing specifically.
She went to one of the best business schools in the States.
Not to brag, but it's funny because I think this year, as we're kind of coming off a lot of political discourse from this previous year, 2020 was obviously like wrought with conversations about how we talk about minority groups. And now it's June, and we're looking, I think, a bit more critically at the way that brands specifically are marketing to queer people during June.
That's what everyone gained, is this critical lens. Even people who don't think critically, they are feigning.
They're being forced. Yeah. They're performing it at the very least.
And
I think it's always really interesting to see when the needle pushes to a point where it's like, oh, we're angry at this now. Because for a while, I think people looked at companies using Pride as a marketing tool as some sort of inclusivity, like, oh, at least we're being acknowledged. But it seems this year the needle has pushed to a point where it's like, okay, this is performative though. The term that we're talking about is rainbow washing. And if you guys haven't been online or you haven't seen this yet, basically what rainbow washing is when a company or a corporation will change their Facebook logos, their Instagram logos, their social media. They'll give you banners on their Facebook or on their websites or in their newsletters saying that have rainbow backgrounds, and they basically are like, hey, look at gays, buy things from us. And then if you actually look at what the company does, they don't do anything for queer rights, gay rights, LGBTQIA communities. And I think it is really valid. I work with this one client who I will not name, who we did change their Instagram and their Facebook logos to be a rainbow logo. And this is sort of on brand for them. They do a logo change very frequently based on what season it is or what's happening. But before we did it, I was like, listen, I got to recommend not doing this unless you're also donating some portion of your proceeds to LGBTQIA communities.
You can talk the talk, but are you walking the walk?
Right. And I feel like that's the distinction people are looking for right now. It's like it takes zero effort or like zero resources to change a logo.
Yeah.
But what are you doing? And so many of the companies that do this are actively donating to anti-queer.
Like, yeah, wait, I actually wrote down what some of those were.
Oh, I saw you share it on your story. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone with, I love finding little tiny accounts with like 400 followers who make a graphic.
Like
that
infographics?
Just, yeah, like good for them. But they didn't really gain
Love
that
your
many
engagement.
Okay, Pfizer.
I know, I saw that. I saw
so Pfizer, I got the Pfizer vaccine. No, just kidding. I got the Moderna, LOL.
I know. Well, I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm so glad I didn't get Pfizer.
Yeah. I'm safe. So they donated $1 million to 52 anti-gay politicians in 2018. Citigroup, credit card, sponsored an event for Brazil's anti-gay president in 2019. So random. This one's like
Brazil's also super fucked in general, so
Disney has never had an openly gay character, but posted a rainbow flag with straight characters walking past it, like making it seem like they were gay.
Oh,
and then
wait, I thought that one guy in Frozen was fully gay.
I thought that Elsa was gay.
No, she's just not overtly.
She's like a queer.
Well, she's like a god now, so.
Oh. So isn't she queer?
I think people have identified her as a queer icon in the same way that like the Babadook got identified as a queer icon, where it's like
Ursula.
They're not actually gay. No, their villains are all very queer coded, but that's a whole different conversation to have about how we oftentimes.
But Ursula was based on that
drag queen, but it's not.
It was
it's not because they were like.
It wasn't honoring. It was just making a caricature of a caricature.
Yeah. But there is a larger conversation to be had about how Disney queer codes all of their villains. And that's not a good conversation.
Disney's creator, who I don't even know his name, is
Walt Disney.
A bigot. Oh yeah. LOL. No, I'm glad I don't know his name.
Fuck that guy. Walt Disney, whoever created that company, I don't know his name.
And I'm back. This last one, interesting. I want your take on it.
Okay, tell me.
Are you loud? Did you choke because of my...
Yeah, a little bit. I'm good. I'm good.
My thought typo. Okay, Spotify did a shit ton of influencer work with queer and trans artists for Pride Month.
But...
And then the argument, and this is coming from an article that a former colleague of ours wrote for Vice. Shout out Katie Way. Spotify paid over $100 million for Joe Rogan's podcast. First of all, OMG. Second of all,
yeah, no, that was, I mean, they're paying out the ass for podcasts right now.
It's really insane how they're getting. Well, the problem with Joe Rogan's podcast, I've actually never listened to it, but apparently apparently Spotify staffers were against getting him on because his history of making transphobic comments and also having transphobic guests on the platform made them uncomfortable.
I think this is a really good example of how brands are all theoretically being the key word, willing to support social causes that they think will benefit them financially. A corporation is not a person. A corporation cannot be for or against something in the world, right? It's not a person. It is run by people, but those people ultimately have a capitalistic goal in mind. Yeah. So when Spotify is giving voice to young queer, trans, gay, bi persons, they're doing that strategically. Yeah. They're doing that because they want to be aligned with this.
Yeah, and it's not like they sign them, they're paying them to do marketing.
But when they pay Joe Rogan, they're not thinking with their activism brain, they're thinking with their money brain. And what they're thinking is Joe Rogan has the #1 podcast and we want his listeners.
It's like Joe Rogan is not an ethical podcast. And if
I would argue there's no ethical podcast. Like anything that you're doing, I mean, this is the whole conversation. Anything that you're doing for money exploits somebody somewhere. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism. And that's why I think this conversation that we're having now about these brands trying to cash in on Pride Month, which is what they're all doing, like even the ones who are donating or changing or doing something, like even the ones who are saying, hey, buy from us and we'll donate 10% of the profits from this sale, they're getting a tax break from that donation because you get tax breaks on donations. Like there's not a good way really for a brand to be ethical or to support a thing. Like you can do it, yes, and it's great, yes, but also like it's all strategic, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think also with brands that are, I imagine there's a way to be ethical in a capitalist society, the max, you know, of ethics that you can have. But the brands that will adhere to those values and morals, being a good person, probably won't be as successful as their competitor who doesn't give a shit and will monetize ethics. Like a Spotify versus an indie, smaller music startup.
Sure, but as we know, like even those smaller startups aren't ethical just because they're smaller. Like think about all the small startups we worked for that were unethical.
Right. Well,
it's really, the thing about it is like it is difficult to have a clear understanding of the supply chain of who's being exploited, whose labor is being exploited, what community is being exploited.
Right, and even if you're a startup and like someone big is getting paid, a really good employee with lots of experience is getting paid shit because they're working for a startup.
Do you just not have HR? Yeah. Are you working overtime without getting paid for that overtime?
But I would say that's a startup that's not ethical. Right. So what I'm saying is I think that I'm not writing them, but there could be a set of rules to be the most ethical that you can be in a capitalist society, but that company probably won't succeed because everyone else, the villain companies,
they could succeed, but are they going to succeed in the lens of capitalism? And the answer to that is no, because the idea of capitalism is to make as much money as you possibly can, which is why people say there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Right. You have to change the goal. It has to be socialist.
Otherwise it's just like a local boutique that does well for a family, but it doesn't become like a big corporation and trying to be the next ethical model company. Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I think in terms of like the Pride conversation, we're right to call out these companies.
Yeah.
Because it is bullshit. And also, I think that if you're looking for your activism from a corporation, you should maybe look elsewhere.
It's like, you know that meme when the girl's like winking, it's from WandaVision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's apply that.
No, yeah, it's like,
to
we love the gays. Wink.
Yeah.
We genuinely care about you and our employees. Wink.
Just give her the rainbow treatment.
What they care about is raking in your hard-earned money because you believe in a cause.
Yeah. It started out as some sort of representation, was co-opted by capitalism, and is now used to help funnel money into companies to fund racist, homophobic, bigoted companies.
Yeah, or just their next line of clothing or shoes.
Or that. Well, I wanted to also point out a term.